Hello coders, welcome to episode 203 of the How to Code Well podcast. Now today we're going to be talking about where to find work in the software development industry, and I'm going to be taking some excerpts from the book that I'm currently writing about getting in the software development industry. Some of this I'm not sure if I'm going to actually include in the book. This is kind of like, well, I'm talking from the first draft, so some of this I can see I've got like dots and some code comments in here as to things I may add and things I may remove, but I'm just going to go with it. Before we start though, a big apology because I haven't managed to get the episodes out as frequently as I would like. They are available on Patreon now. Patreons do get these episodes before anyone else does, and so now Patreons they're starting to get a backlog of episodes before anyone else does on the YouTubes or the Spotifys or the iTunes. So, it's a great way to support the show. I'm not doing this intentionally. It is because I just am so busy now with my work that I haven't been able to actually sit down for half an hour and produce thumbnails and titles and all the SEO stuff around the content creation that you need, and actually be able to push the publish button. Because when I put this on Patreon, of course, I just put it out as it is, right, before I do any of that stuff. And the initial idea was that I would do this every week, and therefore the Patreons would get at least a week's worth of content before anyone else does. But now it just seems like they're getting so much compared to anyone else. So, hey, if you want to support the show and you want to get there before anyone else does, then please join patreon.com/howtocodewell. And of course, by the time people listen to this out in the wild, then hopefully that problem would already be resolved and everyone be caught up. Maybe. I don't know. The next few weeks are looking mad. But let's get on with the damn show. Because, hey, I ain't no salesman. Let's talk about getting into the software development industry, and in particular, where to actually look for finding work. So I'm going to break this up into three sections. First of all, we're going to be talking about user groups and conferences. Then we're going to be talking about social media. And then after that, I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight as to how to code well actually came to light. And there is a story behind this regarding recruitment. So these are excerpts from the book that I'm currently writing, and it's a first draft. So some of this might be in, some of this might be edited, some of this might be removed. Okay, so here we go. All right, so this part is about user groups and conferences. Your local user group is a great place to grow your network. The people attending the user group will have varied skill sets and occupations. It might be surprising to hear, but attendees of a developer user group or conference are not always software developers by trade. Often these groups and conferences are sponsored by companies to provide the venue, food and drinks and entertainment. This is a great opportunity to expand your network outside of the software developer space, as you'll be given access to these sponsors, and if you're lucky, you might be able to sit down and talk with some of them. Don't feel bad if instead of listening to a technical talk about the latest trendy code base, you are actually speaking to someone about your career at either a booth or down the venue corridor. So I'm going to just stop there and just talk about an experience that I've had. I haven't put this in the book, probably I should, but an experience that I had. I went to a conference once. It was an international conference, and I wanted to see some speakers. There were some really good speakers and there were some really good talks, but I got sidetracked because when you go to these conferences, there are like these sponsor booths, the people who sponsor the conference. And maybe they're talking about like a technology or a solution that they've got about something. I mean, sponsors that I've spoken to like Platform SH, they're like Temporal, they're like, they are, I mean, I'm not going to list all of them, but there's a lot of sponsors. Symphony, yeah, loads and loads. It's a great way to talk to the people who are actually behind those those stalls and get a sense for what it is that they are doing. I've spoken to a lot of developer advocates at companies who are at the conferences, and I've been speaking to them whilst the talks are go on. So I go there with the intention of I want to see these talks, but actually there, in some cases, there's more value to actually speaking to the people who aren't actually seeing those talks. They are sat at the booths. And the idea is that you pass your connections, right? So you pass in your LinkedIn profile stuff, and you just get talking with them. And they are there to talk to you, right? So don't feel like you have to go and see all the talks. And a lot of the time, these talks now are online, right? So you can go back and watch them if you want. See, if you went to the talk, you're going to miss out from real human interaction. And that, I feel, is one of the vital parts of going to the conferences and user groups, is having human connection with other developers or other people who are not necessarily in the software developer space, because there could be sponsors there who they are perhaps they're not as technical as perhaps your normal web developer agency or your e-commerce shop. They could be part of something completely different, but they have a technical aspect. They have a website that needs to be supported. It's just a great way of having, like I said, the human connection. And it's, for me, as someone who had guests on the show, and I would like to have guests on again, I just need to get the timing right. It was a great way to talk to people and say, hey, you've got a great story. Do you want us to talk about it on the podcast? That was my way in. It was really, and again, you get to put a name to a face. Anyway, I'll go on to continue on with the book here. So a conference lunch is also a golden opportunity to make new contacts and expand your network. If you are flying solo, as I'm often doing at these events, then it's best to see if you can mix with others and get out of your comfort zone. For an introvert like me, this does often seem like a challenge. But somehow I try and buck up the courage and bounce between crowds to engage with others. However, please don't feel bad for taking time to go back to your room and recharge. For some, social events can seem daunting and tiring. Make sure you look after yourself. So, yeah. I mean, lunches are great because obviously you're with a group of people who you don't necessarily know, especially if you go there on your own, and you see in the midst of people, you get to see like people who are on their own, and they're like stood on their own eating something out of a box, right, that you've been given on the conference. I'm often one of those people, and I try. It's for me. I find it awkward, and it's a bit cumbersome. I'm quite cumbersome when I come to these things. It's a bit stressful. But I try as hard as I can to get out of my comfort zone. I'm there to meet people, right? So, if you go there and if you come away from one of these things and you don't have someone's details and you don't have the connection, the human element, then in my opinion, it's a bit of a wasted journey. I mean, yes, you may have learnt some stuff from a talk, but you're there with human beings. And as developers, we can be quite siloed in our lives. So I find these user groups and these talks and these conferences as a great way to have that connection with people. And the lunch is a great time where you are around other people, right? There's often these tables that you can go and sit at, and just stand by someone and engage in their conversation. And I know that makes it sound so goddamn simple, and it's not. It really isn't. It really isn't. And personally, I find it tiring because you talk to many people during the day, and you just want to decompress at the end of it. However, I've also had some really fantastic dinners with the people that I've seen there. And so you go there not knowing who you're going to speak to sometimes. I often go on my own, right? Because I'm a contractor and I'm not really in a team as such. It's just, I'm like a PHP gun for hire, I suppose. And so I'll go abroad to a conference, not even abroad, PHP London, for instance, just, 2-3 hours down the road. And yeah, I will see if I can talk to people, but it is difficult because I'm not a social animal as others are. However, I understand the importance of the connections that we have or can have. And it's these connections, and I bring it back to the whole job thing, right? Connections are really important because when you start talking about what you have done in your experience and you listen to what other people have done in their experience, if you can somehow bring together some parallel in your conversation, then they're going to remember that going forward. And they may put you forward, they may recommend you, you may do the same. And so it's really important. It's really important that you are able to have those kind of connections. So user groups, conferences are a massive win in my book. Also, what you're looking for at these events is to be able to put a name to a face, to gain social media details and email addresses, but most importantly, friendships and connections. As computer programmers, we often forget the human element of what we do, and going to conferences and user groups is a great way to feel more grounded and part of the community. I want to bring it back to the whole getting a software development job because, as I mentioned earlier about sponsors, there are some places that bring in recruitment agents. And I've had some really fantastic conversations with recruitment agents. And I'm able to speak to them on the phone. And I know what they look like because I've been with them. I've shook their hands, I've had that connection. And that gives me a better sense for what kind of person they are and what kind of candidate they're actually looking for. And I know that if they're going to call me up, then they've already had the conversation. They don't need to know my background because we've had that conversation already. And so, we can start. And it's not like a cold call of a recruitment agent. You know that person because you've had a conversation with that person in real life. And that is really important, really important. I've been fortunate enough to go to one of these user groups and actually sit down and have a pint with a recruitment agent. And that blew my mind. And you get to hear it from their perspective. You get to hear what it is that they are actually looking for in a candidate. And that is gold dust, man. That really is. It's a treat. It really is a treat. So if you're able to go to one of these user groups and go to one of these conferences that have sponsors that perhaps are recruitment agents, or maybe they are companies looking for developers, then that's fantastic. There's this thing about, business cards are pretty dated these days, and I guess they are because of LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that you go there with a nice LinkedIn profile that you can share around. And it shouldn't be, you shouldn't see it as carpet bombing, right? You're not spamming these sponsors, these people at the booths. You're not just dropping your business card here and there. You're actually having proper human conversations with other human beings. It's not cold calls, all right? You get to understand the person behind the telephone, and that is vital. That really is vital. Okay, so we're going to go for a break now, and then we're going to talk about social media and how social media may enable you to get jobs quicker. This show is brought to you by Cloudways. Cloudways is a multi-cloud hosting platform that allows you to choose between the top 3 cloud platform providers such as DigitalOcean, AWS, and Google Cloud for your next application. Not only that, but Cloudways offers 24/7 support, a load of applications that you can one-click install, different environments, staging environments, and staging and testing is a really important thing that we talk about on this show, the importance of having QA environments, staging environments, not just production environments. It also comes with free SSL certificates, a dedicated firewall, Cloudflare Enterprise CDN, automated backups. The list of things that Cloudways provides is endless. Also, they have a really good learning resources section that you can learn how to use these services on the Cloudways site. Now, do use the Cloudways link that I've got in the show notes below, because right now they have a 40% off 4 months and 40 free migrations. So do check out that. Use the link in the show notes below. You're also going to support the show by doing so at no additional cost to yourself. So right now, at the time of recording, they have a 40% off for 4 months and 40 free migrations. So do check out Cloudways to host your next application. Social media is obviously a huge deal in getting a job, right? It was less so when I started out, and we'll talk about that more in a minute when I talk about the origins of How to Code Well. But right now, social media is huge, and recruitment agents use social media a lot. So let's talk about social media, and I'll pull some excerpts from the book that I've got here. So as the social media space has grown, so has the attitudes of recruitment agencies and online job boards. Platforms such as LinkedIn are effective ways to not only discover your next role, but also to advertise and promote yourself to future employers. The use of social media has also reduced the feedback loops during the shortlisting and hiring process. Candidates can now chat in real time to recruitment agents and even future employers. There are downsides to navigating the job market via social media. One disadvantage is the time required to be seen as always active. Having an engaging social media presence can be hard work, as you need to be seen as being involved in discussions and the commentary. Of course, you are in control of the time and effort that you put into social media, and it is up to you to decide if you're giving and receiving value from your interactions. The two most powerful social media tools are the block button and the ability to pause notifications. So again, going back to some of my experience, I used to be quite hot on social media. I didn't mean like viral or anything like that, but I mean like, checking it every morning, checking it every night, checking it every lunch break, and interacting with people, even though the interactions weren't of any particular value, but it just was something to feed the algorithm. And I've seen it tear people apart. It really have. How people try and chase the follow account, and they're not actually providing any value, and they're not gaining anything, and they just end up miserable, but they've got a big follow account, which are probably mostly bots, to be fair. So, that was me for a bit. And I'm trying, obviously, I've been trying to keep it under control. A lot of it is down to me taking time off of social media, but it's a case of knowing when to pump the brakes. But in terms of looking for work, LinkedIn is incredibly powerful, but you don't have to be on it every single day. But it's a great way to show your experience and what it is that you're currently working on right now. It also gives you the opportunity to see the connections that everybody has. So, for example, if you're going to say an interview, then do check the person who's interviewing you and see if they're on LinkedIn and join and connect with them, right? It's really important to know who it is, your audience. I think we've talked about this before. Know your audience when you're actually sat down in an interview. That is so powerful. Know who is the hiring manager, who is the technical lead. try and just see what their profiles are like and what they've worked on before, and actually see the company as well and see what they've done in the past. That is so powerful. We have so many tools these days of being online and being more transparent. It's really important for candidates to use those tools properly. And yes, engage in conversations and make your presence known on social media, but again, know when to pump those brakes. I go on. Another issue with social media and the job market are the snake oil salespeople who hound and promise the sky when in reality they have very little to offer. After a while, you should be able to spot from a mile I'll start that again. After a while, you should be able to spot these from a mile off. Some of the signs include using the same elaborate wording for multiple job adverts, promising things that are for the most part too good to be true, and then backpedaling when questioned about certain aspects of the role. So again, talking from my experience, if you see someone try and promote a role through social media using the same language, then that is a massive red flag. It's the same with if someone sends you an email with the same language from one job to the next job. You know, it's like looking at a very similar spec, but the pay is totally different and some of the skill sets are different. You know, but if they start off with a whole sort of, this is the best role you'll ever see, blah, 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 I'm working with this fantastic client or a well-established client of mine, and you've been shortlisted, any of those kind of things, if you see copy and paste of various different roles in the job adverts, then be cautious, be very careful. And also with the social media, we now have the ability to chat to people, direct messaging pretty instantly. And in my experience, when the bad recruitment agents do this, it's when they don't give all of the details, the important details, the details that perhaps you ask for right at the start. And you have to fish for those because they perhaps know that you're not actually interested, right? Or that's a deal breaker, but they try and sell you on the other shiny toys first. And if those shiny toys aren't of any interest to you, but the important questions are like, you know, things like, is this remote? Or how many times do I get offered jobs that are not offered jobs, but given job specs of someone from permanent roles, that kind of stuff. And it's clear, very clear, that I'm a contractor. It's like, why waste my time? Why? Just have a look. I've been a contractor for so many years. Why would I even consider this role as a permanent role? You know, it boggles my mind. And it's the same with people who try and send me jobs that are for Java or C. And it's just like, you can clearly see that I'm not a developer of Java or C, right? But you've offered me this. But you've also dangled the carrot in front of my nose, or in my case, because I'm not a vegan, a nice slab of bacon or some meat, saying, oh, but this also comes with a company car and some brilliant healthcare and some, you know, all of this and all of that. And then when I ask the important question, just to double check, this is a contract role, right? And they go, oh no, it's permanent. It's like, well, why didn't you start with that? We've just had this conversation for like such a long time, and you've sold me on all the things, right? That's, you know, tick, 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 tick. But the most important one, the one that you probably already know is a deal breaker because you've had a look at my profile, is that it's a permanent job. And I have been a contractor for the last 8 years. Why? What? Or you don't tell me all the technical stuff. I suddenly discover that it's actually a manager's role. Yes, this happens. So when you have these messages through LinkedIn or other social medias, I've had this done through Twitter as well. People send me direct messages about certain jobs. You want to know precisely what you're after, and you want to maybe it's the three things that are going to be deal breakers regardless of what it is, whatever the job is, right? You want to just ask these things. When someone gets in touch with you, just go, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? If not, sorry, this is what I'm looking for. Because then that just destroys the time. It stops them wasting time. And you're also, I suppose, wasting their time in that sense as well, because they really should be focusing their efforts on someone else who is more tailored to the role. But I do find that social media is a way for the recruitment agents to carpet bomb the candidates, right? Because they'll just have this chat bot thing that just sends out automated messages to potential candidates, and they'll just have these mass conversations going on. Half the time, none of them actually work out. And I guess that I've just been, in this horrible pool of those chats, which is really unfortunate. Really, and you can tell when you are, because you go and ask a question and then it takes them bloody ages to get a response back. And you're like, okay, well, I'm obviously not that valuable to you, because you're chatting to someone else who is probably going through the same set of answers. Yuck. So yeah, social media is a great thing and it's a bad thing. And it has flipped the script with recruitment, because the recruiters are now able to contact you rather than you apply for the job first. Because traditionally it was, here is a job board and you upload your CV and perhaps you put in your telephone number and your email address. And that was the only way that they would be able to reach you. And usually they would only reach you if you actually fit the bill of the application that you were applying for, unless they had something else on the table before they actually put it out to the job boards and they called you up before that happened. But typically that usually only happens when you're actually more established in the industry. Because if it's literally your first role, right, then you don't have any experience. So you're less likely to be called upon before it actually goes out to job boards. But now the fact that social media is here, there is the opportunity for recruitment agents to send you direct messages. And there are automated ways that's being used. And so that unfortunately can lead to negativity in the social media space that I've just talked about. Okay, sorry about that. It was a bit negative, wasn't it? But, before we move on, we need to talk, before we get on to the how to code well stuff, I really recommend, if anybody is wanting to get into this industry or move on into this industry or get into a different role, I highly recommend, if you are able to and if you're willing, start up a YouTube channel, start up a blog, start up something that can demonstrate what you do, because it shows your passion, and that is really important. We'll talk about that in a minute, but having the ability to demonstrate your learning and your ability is really important, because if you have something that someone can see, then they have that plus the CV. You then have something that other people don't have, and that is the publication, the thing that you've learnt, and you can demonstrate that. It is demonstrable, okay? So if you're applying for a role and that role is a well sought after role, then you can use social media and you can use your publishing platform, whatever it is, your blog, your YouTube channel, your Medium posts, whatever, as a way of discussing and empowering or even teaching other people about your talent. And I've certainly used other people's blogs. I've certainly used, say, Rob Allen has a really great blog that I've used very frequently. Some really good people, the Stitcher.io, that is an amazing blog about PHP. So yeah, if you are able to, and it's the thing is, the excuses I hear from people are, oh well, it's already been learnt, it's already been taught. So there's no point in writing a blog about it. There's no point in actually writing what I've learnt today. But you should be writing it for yourself and not for others. And it's the same with the YouTube videos that I do. I try and do them for the audience, obviously, but at the beginning, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I did it for myself. And it actually helped me get into work. And it actually has really proved its value. It takes a long time to do these videos. It takes a long time to do these podcasts, but there's a value to it. And the value is that potential employers can see who I am. They can hear my words and they can see what I can do. They can see me type my code, right? They can see how fast I am. They can see the mistakes I make. They can see how I think. And you can demonstrate that as well through writing, right? So you can write about the code that you've learned and where you are in your career, and you can write about the new tools that you've discovered, and other people may read that and gain value from it, which is fantastic. And I can tell you, there's been a ton of people who've listened and who've watched my content, and they've gained some tremendous value. And I am very grateful for the lovely comments that I get, the frequent comments that I get about how someone has learned code through my courses on YouTube, and they've really pushed themselves to get jobs, and they've used my content as a means of helping them overcome a coding problem or just learn more about the industry before they get into it. And I really do find those comments really rewarding. That is now the sole reason why I do this stuff. It's now nothing to do with me, it's to do with the audience. Whereas before it was all about me. So I tell you what, let's get into another break and then we'll talk about the beginnings, the origin story of How to Code Well. If you're looking to level up your programming skills or wanting to learn a new programming language, then I highly recommend checking out the affiliate link in the show notes below for Manning. So with Manning, you can learn programming skills using their online video course platform, or you can buy some of their books. They're both ebooks as well as physical books on all sorts of programming disciplines, such as Python, artificial intelligence, machine learning, testing, SQL, all sorts of various different things. Their bestsellers at the minute are around artificial intelligence, AI-powered developer. There is AI-assisted data science. There is also Learn AI-assisted Python programming. And if I was to go to the all products section here, we can see that they have a huge amount of titles that you can choose from, including JavaScript, C#, Go, Spark, Kubernetes. And the reason why I like Manning myself is because I'm actually a Manning author. I've created this Docker in Motion course. It is 135 exercises, 5 hours and 19 minutes, all teaching you Docker. Now, as a Manning author, I have experienced firsthand how thorough they are when it comes to creating content and resources. So my Docker in Motion course here, it was actually sent out to a lot of Docker devs who were able to advise and help me tweak this course. And they do that with all of their resources. So I really do recommend Manning. And of course, they have a lot of deals on at the minute because we're coming up to Christmas. So this week, buy 2 or more and save 45%. So do check out Manning. Use the affiliate link in the show notes below. You'll not only help support this channel, but you'll also level up your programming skills. Now, I may have mentioned this a couple of times. I probably mentioned this when I was doing my live streams on Twitch, which, by the way, I'm not doing live streams anymore. would like to do them at some point, but I'm not doing them now. But I'm getting all the notifications, obviously, of people following my Twitch channel. Still following my Twitch channel, which is just madness. So thank you for those. And before we get into this, I also just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the listeners out there. Wow. Because, yeah, How to Code Well is now being listened to. The podcast is now being listened to in 82 countries. That scares the life out of me. Because when I'm standing here and I'm just speaking into a camera, I don't think that anybody's listening. But obviously thousands of you are. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone before we get into this. The origins of How to Code Well. Okay, so here we go. Some excerpts from the book that I'm currently writing. Whilst on the hunt for my first foothold in the software development industry, the term social media was still in its infancy. My Facebook and my YouTube accounts were created whilst finishing my university dissertation. I'm 40 next year. So, we're talking many, 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 many years ago, because I came out of school and then I did a couple of courses at college and then I went into university. So, yeah, you can calculate my age when I was, how long ago that was. Okay, I'll get back to it. So at the time, I used Facebook and other social media platforms of that earlier era as a means of keeping in touch with fellow students and not as a tool of seeking out my next career move. And I say my next career move, at the time I was working in a bike shop. So yeah, nothing to do with software development. Whilst I was at university, when I got back from uni, the last year I was living at my parents, last sort of half year, I was living at my parents and I was working in a bike shop. And before then, I've worked at restaurants. I've been a kitchen porter. That's a posh name for saying a dishwasher. I've rolled donuts in sugar. I've done all sorts of crazy stuff when I was studying. It's not all been software, trust me. Okay, so where are we? Even though LinkedIn existed, it wasn't seen as a true competitor of the traditional methods of looking for work. The traditional methods back then were job boards and writing letters to people, I guess. The final year of university included a mad rush of writing cover letters, applying for job adverts online, even applying to software development roles in newspapers. Countless emails were written and endless conversations with recruitment agents over the telephone. The amount of applications made was probably in the region of 50 to 70, and most never responded or even acknowledged that I had even applied. That was incredibly disheartening because you spent so long tailoring your CVs and your cover letters to the jobs that you're applying for. It took so long, and at the time I was doing my dissertation because I wanted to come out of the university with the ability to get into the software development industry. I didn't want to work back at the bike shop. I didn't want to go back to the factories. I didn't want to clean dishes anymore. I had studied and studied for years and years and years. I was determined to work in the software development industry, but 50 to 70 applications, and most of them never responded or even acknowledged that I had even applied. It sucked. It was exhausting and at times very disheartening. But yeah. Oh, you can hear a dog barking. I don't think it's mine. But anyway, I will continue. No, it's not mine. There was a telephone conversation with... Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry. I've... Let's rewind. Okay. There was one telephone conversation with a recruitment agent that will always be held dear. Unfortunately, I forget the name of the recruitment agency this empathetic and kind agent worked for. He listened to my despair of the countless applications that were submitted, and I was trying to give reassurance that a job would eventually come to light. He told me to keep patience and to continue applying for whatever software development roles came up. And I'll tell you, when you're a junior dev and you have just come out of university, it is a case of applying for anything. Back then, it was just like, yeah, I'll do it. I just need to get my first foot on the ladder. Finding the first job in the industry will always be the hardest, he said. You've got no commercial experience and your portfolio is very similar to others who are fresh out of university. I mean, yeah, I studied the same thing as my fellow students. So my CV was no different from anyone else. I did have some freelance work on the side, but really it was few and far between. I mean, I did do things on the side for paying clients. It wasn't really a lot of paid work. And there were a couple of URLs that I could throw out, but seriously, it was not enough to put my CV above others, I don't think. Especially because my grades weren't. I mean, I passed. I got my I got my bachelor's degree, but my modules weren't as perhaps as high as I would have liked compared to others. And that's the thing. You are comparing yourself with very similar candidates at the time, and you're also in a pool of people who are far more experienced than you are. So it was just it was not easy. Headphones are falling off my head. Hold on. Right. It's me bald head. Where I don't know where I am. Blah blah blah. Where am I? Okay, yeah. So he told me to keep patience and to continue applying for whatever software development roles came up. Finding the first job in the industry will always be the hardest, he said. You've got no commercial experience and your portfolio is very similar to others who are fresh out of university. At the end of the conversation, he said something to the effect of that he wished there was some way that I could demonstrate to the companies I was applying for how well I could code. That weekend, I mulled over that conversation, and in particular, the words he used, how well I could code, and they seemed to get stuck in my head. You can see where this is going. At this time, YouTube was in its infancy. It hosted mostly cat videos and silly dance routines. There wasn't much educational content out there, and at the time, I had no interest in becoming a teacher or a teacher of programming. The plan was to use the YouTube platform as a tool to do just what the recruitment agent wanted, to demonstrate how well I could code. The links to the videos could then be added to the CV in the hope that potential employers would see how well I could code. This, I thought, would give me an edge over the other candidates who were applying for the same roles as me. With a small collection of videos uploaded to the How to Code Well YouTube channel, that was born. So, that's how to Code Well started. It was a recruitment agent who told me that he wished there was some way I could demonstrate how well I could code. And I go back to what I was saying before about having a blog or any kind of online presence where you can demonstrate what you do or you demonstrate what you're learning. And when I was doing the videos, I don't know why, but I went into some form of tutorial thing, and I ended up becoming an educator. And it was I just fell into that. So I go on to say, when the record button was pressed, I unknowingly conducted a programming lecture on how to use a database on the command line. I have to write that. Of course, being a teacher was never my intention. After uploading a handful of videos and watching the view count barely budge, I lost hope in the videos and continued applying normally, not wanting to log back into my account. To this day, I still have no idea if creating these videos helped me land my first job in the software development industry. So even though I did that, I don't know whether they helped get into the industry or not. But what I can say is they are certainly helping me now, because when I have interviews with people, they've already seen me, they've already heard me, because they go and watch my YouTube channel. And that's incredibly powerful. And it can happen with you lot. I mean, if you're writing a blog, they can say, I've read your blog. You know, I've read the things that you're currently getting up to. And that's really powerful. It's a tool. It's something that I really urge people to do. And that is just if you don't want to be in front of a camera, and hardly any people, you know, not a lot of people do, right? It's scary as hell. So if you just write, this is what I learned today. These are some commands that I ran, or this is an error that I fixed. You know, put in the error message and then put in you fix the solution. Or this is how I've set up my system, or this is a review of this particular programming language, or this particular framework, or these are the troubles that I'm facing with this library, and this is how I'm getting around it. Those kind of ways in, right? Okay, so then I go on to say the YouTube account was left dormant for a few years. I had started my career as a junior web developer and thought nothing of the videos that I had created years ago. It was only when being asked to upload a video that wasn't even related to programming that I decided to log back into my old YouTube account. So I remember this well. It was a relative of mine. They wanted to upload a video to YouTube to show something to someone. And I thought, hang on a minute. I have a YouTube account that I created many years ago. I'll log back into it, and perhaps I can upload it there. So I logged back into it, and I was shocked what I saw. So I go on to say, what my dashboard showed me took my breath away. People were watching the videos, and not only that, some of the viewers asked questions and wanted to know when the next tutorials were being uploaded. Some even gave suggestions of new tutorials that they wanted to see. All of this came as a huge surprise. Suddenly, the meaning and the purpose behind these videos changed. They were no longer selfish attempts to prove to potential employers how well I could code. These videos were educational. They benefited the audience and were helping others to get into the industry. They were showing other members of the programming community how to code well. I was genuinely blown away, and I decided that actually I wanted to. The next uploads had to be done properly, right? With the intention of actually continuing on the database class that I had created. So I think I created like a handful of those videos, but I wanted to actually finish that as a course. And that's what I did. And I properly sat down and scheduled it out and planned it out and I even storyboarded the damn thing. I don't do that now when I do a tutorial, but it was the only way I could think of doing at the time, because I felt like there was obviously a need that those videos were fulfilling, and it was a need that I never even understood. I didn't even know it was there until people were asking, and the view count was very high, in my opinion, at that time. So that's how to Code Well started. It's doubtful that the first videos actually did anything to help me get into the industry, but as the channel has grown, it has become very apparent that my career has been helped by the content that has been uploaded. Videos like these show a passion and dedication to the industry. They also show a desire to learn more programming skills, and perhaps more importantly, they show how I communicate. We are going to talk about soft skills and the importance of communication, mentoring, and leadership skills in chapter ... Now the hiring team can see let's not talk about that, because that's going to probably be for one of the next videos, but we're going to, so this is where things start to get a bit funky in the sense of the book. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, basically the takeaway there is that social media is a really powerful tool, and also having your own ability to demonstrate what it is that you're currently learning And I'm not just talking about your portfolio. I'm talking about a blog. I'm talking about having maybe a YouTube channel or a podcast, something that is demonstrating what you do and can show your passion and your desire to learn more and to be a part of the community and have your own presence, your own voice. And with future employers, they can read that, they can consume that, and they can see how you are as a person. And that is really important. It's very important. So there we go. Before we go, I just want to say a massive thank you to the Patreons. We've got David Sprong, Marjane Zamalok, and Am Malik Unrelated. I probably have butchered those names. They're going to be very different from each of the episodes, I'm sure. If you want to support the show, either go to patreon.com/howtocodewell. You will get the episodes before anyone else does. And if it's been like it has recently, you're going to get a lot of episodes before anyone else does because I just haven't had the opportunity to publish them yet. You're also going to get the knowledge bites. So these knowledge bites are little audio snippets when I'm perhaps walking around doing random things. The last one was when I was walking back from the gym, and I just basically have a little rant about some specific thing in programming, one of which was around refactoring code. There's also project files on Patreon as well. If you have done any of my courses, that you can get some of the project files there. Another way to support the show, of course, is through Buy Me a Coffee. If you just want to buy me a coffee, then head over to buymeacoffee.com/howtocodewell. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening. I have seen the analytics. The Spotify do like a Spotify wrapped up, or whatever it's called. They do that for creators as well as consumers. So I've seen the analytics, and I am over the moon. I am over the moon at how well this podcast is doing. It's brilliant, and it's fantastic. But please also remember that it's not just Spotify. If you can head over to iTunes and give me some feedback, rate the thing, that'll be great. It's good for the algorithms and whatnot. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, if you've got any thoughts, then you know what to do. Hook me up on Twitter, or send a comment over on whatever platform you listen to or watch this on. Thank you ever so much. Love you all. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.